think I was like probably like 11 maybe when I first started skateboarding, and my favorite band at the time was Nirvana, and I would always see them wearing shirts of like other bands, and that really encouraged me to kind of get into different types of music. And really young age I discovered Minor Threat and Black Flag, and the Bad Brains too actually. And so I got really into those bands, and then just kind of spiraled from there. By the time I was like 16, pretty much every weekend my friends and I were packing into whoever had their license's car, and we were driving to like Philly, New York, Boston, Richmond, DC, Baltimore, anywhere we could find, Wilkes-Barre, and just going to shows. I mean, that became my life from the time I was like 16 till pretty recently. So I don't really know what drove me in. It's just, I just kind of liked the music, I guess, and I liked the fact that I didn't feel completely out of place at hardcore shows growing up, I guess. That's probably the best thing about it for me, I guess. We started Blacklisted when I was, I think, like 20, maybe 21, I don't know. But we had been playing in a band together called No Rights, which did like 2 7-inches, and we never really did anything that big, but we played a few shows. I think we played Posse Numbers once, maybe. I don't remember. And then we were sitting in my room one day. It was me, George, Tim, and Zach, who was the original drummer. And I guess what kind of happened was we were all at that age where we'd been playing bands for long enough, but we'd never really toured. And I guess we just decided, like, look, what are we going to do for the next couple of years? Like, are we just going to like play in this band and hang out? So we decided we were going to start a band that we were going to try to take a little more seriously, and that became Blacklisted. We kind of just set out to play like heavy hardcore, and George did his own kind of take on like the lyrical vocal thing. And you know, I stopped playing with them after the split with First Blood came out, but obviously they've become a very seminal band in the modern sort of hardcore scene. Reign Supreme started in 2006. It was a complete like accident. Like, I wasn't even really playing music at the time, and I just ended up hooking up with some old friends, and we kind of like got together at my friend Justin's house, and we would like jam on these really absurdly derivative like Hatebreed, Madball type riffs, which is totally cool. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a place for that, but yeah, we just kind of decided we were gonna start playing like hardcore the way that we liked it. You know, not like what was kind of in vogue at the time, which was stuff a little bit more like, I think Half Heart was really big, which they're a good band, but we didn't want to sound like that. So we kind of like started Reign Supreme as a way to sort of be like, hey, we're gonna bring back like the heavy, like sort of menacing hardcore sound, I guess. And so we did that for a little bit, and then I mean we played a bunch of shows, did a lot of touring, and then we kind of were like, hey, touring sucks. We're gonna go back to the real world for a little bit. And so we've been kind of doing that for a little while, but we just finished a new record. And we actually just got off, I think, like a 7-week tour. We just did the US, Canada, and Europe, and played a bunch of big fests. And now we're back getting ready to release this record, and we have a few little things lined up throughout the year. And I think we're probably going to go on tour again this summer, because as much as I hate going on tour, I really do like it. So it's something you gotta do, you know? Philly has always been one of those places growing up, and not just Philly, but like Pennsylvania as a whole, like this part of the state anyways. It's been one of those places that's had a really interesting hardcore scene. I mean, growing up in New Jersey, we really only had a few venues. Where I was from, the closest thing was Casino Skate Park, and we had a lot of really rad shows there. But you mostly had to drive up north, and the shows, they were cool. They were very safe. I mean, there was like, you know, Ensign and Floor Punch and like Saves the Day would all play together and stuff, and it was cool. I mean, like I said, it was safe. It was a bunch of like, you know, nerdy kids going to shows or whatever. And then I remember I started going to shows in Philly, and it was really menacing. I mean, it was a violent community when I first moved here, and like when I first got down here. And something about that, I think, kind of drew me in. I think at a young age, I just thought it was like, I guess I wanted to be friends with like the biggest and baddest, and I didn't just want to be like one of like the kids who I thought were kind of like nerdy or something. So yeah, I definitely liked going to shows here when I was younger, and definitely the Rotunda sticks out. That was a really fun place for shows. The Kill Time was awesome. Steve Bush actually dislocated my jaw during a Panic set at the Kill Time. I'll never forget that. The Troc was cool too. Like when I was in high school, I saw a lot of shows there. But for the most part, I don't know. I think Club HP was really cool. And then you have the seminal venue that will never ever be not awesome, which is the First Unitarian Church. Probably the coolest place, you know, that we had for many years. But now, of course, I think the best venue, I kind of want to say in the country, is Union Transfer. Because, I mean, I've toured a lot, I've seen a lot of places. Even in Europe, there's a lot of amazing venues and really cool people. Union Transfer is one of the coolest places I've ever been. It's, like, perfect for shows of any caliber. So it's really awesome, and I'm really glad to say that, like, I think I've matured a lot as a person. I think that the Philadelphia scene, and even the Pennsylvania scene, everybody's kind of grown up. It's a lot less violent. It's a lot less sort of, you know, there's less of a feeling like, hey, if you say something stupid at Centerview, somebody's going to kill you. But there's good and bad to that. I think a lot of kids now kind of pop up, go to shows for a couple months, and act like they're hot shit. Whereas in the early 2000s, if you tried that, I mean, dudes would just equalize you. It was kind of funny to watch that. So it's a little safer now, but, you know, of course, being 30 and not really giving a shit about proving anything to anybody, I like that. So the first contact I had with, like, the Philly kids, as they were known from where I was from, was there was this show in Atlantic City, and Mushmouth played. And Mushmouth is okay. I mean, you know, I don't dislike them. I don't love them, but they're pretty good, and they were definitely a band I wanted to see in high school. So I remember we drove down, and I remember there was just like ridiculous bar fight where some dude got his head smashed in with a bar stool. That was my first exposure to like the way Philadelphia deals with things, and I remember being pretty taken aback by that. I'd never seen anything like that really growing up. You know, we would get into fights and stuff, but it was like, you know, little kid stuff. I remember seeing that and thinking like, whoa, this is like some bad stuff. And then I moved here and I started hanging out with a lot of the dudes who, you know, I guess had been responsible for a lot of that at the time. And honestly, as I hung out with them, I kind of got, I didn't really see them like that. I don't know. I've never gotten like beat up by dudes from Philly, you know? Like that never happened to me. I've always gotten along with everybody pretty well here, I think for the most part. And so I never really had to worry about it. But I will say that there was a long time where it was very intimidating, I think, for a lot of people. And I mean, I've seen some really pretty bad things. You want to sit up here, buddy? Come on. Pretty bad things go down at shows and stuff like that. But it's been a long time. I mean, Joe Hardcore, he's really done a lot in terms of like making it kind of safe for people to kind of come get into hardcore and not have to worry about whether they're going to go home or go to the hospital. So I think that's really useful and really good. Honestly, it's a good thing. It's taken away a little bit of the danger, but that's good. It was a little bit too dangerous, I think, back then, and I'm kind of glad that's over.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, you bring that up, and like it like brings me back in time, you know? Like that's just not a reality now. Even now, if I want to go to shows, I find out about most shows in Philly from Twitter or Facebook. That's the reality, man. Like, I look and I see on, like, you know, Facebook, Joe Hardcore says, oh, Earth Crisis, something, something are playing, and I go, I'm going to that. Or I look on Twitter and, you know, R5 says, hey, X, Y, and Z are coming through. That's how I find out about shows now. It's crazy because I definitely remember flyering. I have a gigantic flyer collection in the basement of, like, stuff I kept growing up. And so there's that, and it's totally changed. And I guess that if I really had to offer any criticism of that, because in a lot of ways this is good. It's allowed a lot of bands, including my band, a chance to interact with our fans, a chance for us to play our music for people who might not get to see it or hear it. It's allowed a lot of things, and frankly, I'm never going to see a dime off of anything my stupid band does anyway, so I don't mind if people download our stuff or whatever, and like if it's a chance for some kid in some shitty town somewhere to download our record, hear it, and possibly get into creating heavy, you know, music or whatever on his own, then I feel good about that. So I like the internet for a lot of things. But like I said, if there's one thing I could criticize, it would be this. The internet has made it such that a lot of people who've never done or said anything important or created anything or contributed anything to music, not even just hardcore we're talking about now, but like music, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it, these people now have a voice. And that really bothers me because I feel like growing up, you know, I had to keep my mouth shut because who was going to care? And frankly, around these parts, if you were going to talk shit, you were going to get smoked. Some dude was going to rock you, because that's how things used to get dealt with. And like I said, it's good it's not like that anymore, you know, but there was a certain romantic sort of thing to that. It was kind of nice to know, like, oh, this dude stepped out of line and we kept him in line. Not we being me, but us, hardcore or whatever. And that doesn't really exist anymore. I think kids are more able to just say whatever they want and do whatever they want because they have a name, they have a face, they're that kid on Facebook or the Bridge 9 board or whatever. I think that's really hurtful because it's making it so that kids who literally are not doing anything, who should be standing in the back, who have nothing to contribute or offer, those kids are the ones who are kind of calling the shots more than the people who are creating music, who are touring, who are being in bands, who are doing shows, who are cooking for bands, who are doing documentaries, who are writing zines, who are doing websites, who are doing whatever. Those are the people I want to be friends with. Those are the people who I think are important. Those are the scene. It's not people who go to shows. That's important and that's helpful. But for God's sakes, if you love this, give something to it. It doesn't have to be much. I love this, so I write music. If you love it and you want to write, you know, a website, do that. Do whatever you want to do. But for God's sakes, do something. Don't just be one of those people who sits around and criticizes, because it's very easy for us to criticize things. It's much harder for you to actually put yourself out there and be the subject of criticism. So I don't like that the internet has allowed itself to be sort of a platform for these people who are literally nobody to criticize people who are doing something. You know, I think it's just kind of bogus, you know. I'm sure I'll make some enemies when I say this, but I don't really, whatever. It is what it is. I can't respect myself if I don't speak my mind. Pennsylvania and Philadelphia have not put out the caliber of bands that DC and Boston and New York have. That's a fact. That is an unfortunate fact. It's not saying that there aren't good bands from here, but I mean, you look at Boston, from the early 80s until today, pretty much every band that comes out of Boston, whether or not you like them, they do well and they write good music, and the people up there get hardcore. They get how to do it in a way that even if I don't necessarily like it, other people relate to it and their bands get big. You know what I mean? I never saw what the big deal was about Suicide File. I thought they were cool dudes and they were whatever, but I wasn't into it. American Nightmare, I really liked their first couple records, and then I kind of wasn't into it as much. You know, but I guess what I'm saying is Pennsylvania got overlooked for sure, but I think a lot of that also had to do with the caliber of bands that were available elsewhere. And I mean, maybe if there were a few more people in this area writing music that was original and really, really challenged like our ideas about hardcore or you know, whatever music is meant to be, I think that there would have been more. Which is not to say much, because I do remember in the early 2000s going to shows in Boston, New York, DC, all over the place. And Philly was always second best for sure, because Boston always had the craziest crowds, but Philly had huge crowds of passionate people who really liked music, and that matters, you know. I would go up to Nanticoke and Wilkes-Barre for shows, and they had huge crowds that really cared about the music, and it's awesome. And those guys are all putting out good bands and good music and stuff. So it's not like they're not doing anything. I mean, I just think that it's, you know, you gotta look at Boston, you gotta look at DC. They pretty much originated hardcore in those areas. Then you look at New York. New York is responsible for, in my eyes, the best types of hardcore pretty much. I mean, you got AF, Judge, Burn, the Cro-Mags. I could go on for an hour. Madball, who are my favorite hardcore band of all time. Like, Philly, PA, you just can't compete with that. I mean, that's just the way it is. I could see that, but it doesn't really matter. If you're talking about bands, those states may beat us, but if you're talking about love for music, if you're talking about hardcore, no one can compare to the way that I think the passion you'll feel when you play shows in Philly, and I think bands that come through here know that. I know when we play, you know, you can tell that the crowd is just animals, you know? It's different. It's a different vibe. Yeah, well, I mean, but, you know, look at who's responsible for that. Like, you're talking about guys who have been into hardcore for decades, who've been putting on shows, putting up bands, touring, and doing all kinds of, like, noticeable stuff. I mean, you're not talking about a bunch of dudes who came out of nowhere. You know, Mahmood The dude's been in bands. He's been doing shows. He's been doing stuff. It's not like he's like some sleeper that never did anything. And then all of a sudden, mommy and daddy gave him a couple grand and he started doing a fest. You know, Joe's been in bands. Joe's been doing shows for years. I've known Joe since like well over a decade now. The guy's been passionate. He's been doing this forever. And so, I mean, yeah, that's a product of what happens. I mean, like, it's really, really cool in that regard. And it's come a long way. I mean, if you look at the sort of scene now, Pennsylvania is definitely up there. I mean, in terms of like, I think what I was saying before is like in terms of legendary hardcore bands, PA doesn't really have that many. But if you look at it right now, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you're like into that kind of Sound and Fury, United Blood thing, you've got all those bands from Wilkes-Barre. You know, you've got Cold World, United Youth, Dead End Path, Stick Together, all those kinds of bands. Title Fight, who are killing it. I mean, absurdly so. And then, you know, if you like the sort of like more New York hardcore thing, you know, you've got Wisdom in Chains, who are phenomenal. Strength for a Reason is still playing, still doing awesome, still super tight and heavy. You've got all these crazy bands coming out. Blacklisted coming out of Philly, you know, just shredding it and getting more creative with everything they do. Like, it's a great place right now. I mean, I think traditionally it was overlooked because you had all those other bands from other areas. But if you look at it right now, I don't know who's on top. I mean, I don't know if anybody can beat PA, can beat Philly right now. I've been involved in this for over half of my life on planet Earth at this point. I've been doing this a long time. I've been going to shows for a long time. I've been listening to this kind of music for a long time. I can relate to that, honestly. I mean, it's weird for me to say that because I look at like what my weekend looks like, and it's like, yeah, I have like my like family stuff and my like work stuff, but I'm still going to see Converge and Torch. I'm still writing lyrics for my new band. I'm still working on Reign Supreme's next record. Like, my friends and I are always starting these like dumb bands. We have this project where we're going to cover Sleep's Dope Smoker in its entirety, but change the name to Cone Smoker and write it about ice cream. Like, we're always involved with music of any kind, not just hardcore. So it's weird for me to be able to relate to that, but I can. I mean, look, it sucks. There's a lot of stuff about this scene that sucks. There's a lot of stuff about playing music that sucks, about going to shows that sucks. It takes your money. You know, it's tough. I can see that. It's not... I don't look down on people who kind of move on. I look down on people who move on and look down on me, because that's shitty. Like, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I can't ever get a real job, man. I've marked myself for life. I'm going to be a punk forever. That's who I am. My wife knows that, and she's cool. My family maybe finally is accepting that. That's who I am. I can never get out of it, but I can relate to those people. I guess I just kind of think it sucks if they think that, you know, they have to all of a sudden... Like, there's no linear point, you know? You're not like, oh, I was a little kid, and then I was a teenager, and I was into hardcore, and then I graduated college, and now I'm an adult, and I go to bars, and I'm sophisticated. Like, there doesn't have to be a linear progression like that. You can have it all, man. Like, I go to school, I'm pursuing a degree, I have a good job that I really like, I have an awesome family, I live in a great neighborhood, I ride a motorcycle every day, I play music. I do it all because that's what I love to do, and I think it sucks that people think you have to be one way or the other, and they judge people who are able to have it all. I mean, look, if you're 30 and you want to go to shows and you can afford to and you do and it makes you happy, then fuck everybody who's going to judge you and fuck everybody who thinks that what they're doing is somehow better. Life is too short to worry about what other people think, so I don't really waste my time on it. I don't know. I've had a really crazy like love-hate relationship with hardcore because it's one of those things that like it's kind of like if you put too much of yourself into it, it tends to be very cruel to you back, I think. You know, it's funny, I grew up going to hardcore shows feeling like it was a place I fit in, but now I don't feel like I fit in at hardcore shows. I feel like the odd man out, and I feel like I'm weird, and I feel like my band is not, you know, exactly, I guess, hyped right now in a lot of crowds, and it's totally cool. Like, I've accepted it. It's fine. We are what we are, and I am who I am, and I don't really care that much. Hardcore to me right now, in 2012, at 30 years of age, basically is an underlying current in my everyday, you know? I don't wake up, get out of bed, call my homeboy up, go get pizza at 2 in the afternoon, and then, like, hang out and play, like, stupid Madball rip-off riffs, and then whatever. Like that's not my life. My life is a life, and I, you know, get up early, go to the gym, go to school. But when I'm at the gym, you know, I'm listening to heavy music on my phone or whatever. And when I'm driving places, I'm not listening to like John Mayer. Like it's never changed. It is who I am. But it's become so subconscious. It's become totally autonomous. I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to be, I guess what I'm saying is I don't have to be hardcore to be hardcore anymore. I don't have to wear a hoodie of the newest Bridge 9 signing. I don't give a fucking shit about any of that. Hardcore to me is me and my stupid friends getting together, playing music, lifting weights, riding motorcycles, going on tour, and not giving a fuck if hardcore thinks that's cool or not. Whatever. It is what it is. That's who we are, and I mean, I guess that's about as punk as you can really get, you know?
Alright.
I said this before, but I guess it's really important to reiterate. Like, Pennsylvania it's an interesting place, man. I mean, realistically, it's Pittsburgh, Philly, and a couple places in between. And when I say Philly and a couple places in between, I'm including, like, Wilkes-Barre and all that kind of stuff, like the suburbs. That's all pretty much part of Philly. It's close enough, you know? This is a unique and interesting place, and I didn't move here by accident when I was younger. This is a place where a lot of kids come and a lot of kids hang out and go to shows and get to develop themselves musically, and I think that's really, really cool. And I guess what I'm saying is I, as a person, am extremely, extremely, extremely thankful that I made the choice to move here from New Jersey, as much as I love New Jersey, and I probably will move back at some point. Because this is a place where amazing people, like, you know, Chris Nanakoke and the guys from Wisdom in Chains, the guys from Strength, where Joe Hardcore, the guys we started Blacklisted together, the guys in my bands now, the kids I see at shows, they're amazing people who really just do what they do because it's who they are and it's what they do. And there's something very liberating about being around that. You know, in a world where everybody kind of walks all over each other to get ahead, it's really cool to be around people who just are what the fuck they are and don't really care if you approve or not. So I'm grateful for PA hardcore, and I'm grateful for Philly hardcore because it's a good thing at the end of the day. And I like the fact that there's very little pretension here. I guess I do kind of wish that it could go back to the early 2000s, though, where if you act like a fool, you got snuffed. That was pretty cool.